I built this gaming PC with parts from 2017, and actually it still performs pretty good. You can play most games at 1080p with respectable settings. My question is, can I take this almost 8-year-old gaming PC and flip it for a profit? You've already seen the finished build by now, and if it isn't obvious, only the internal parts are from 2017. I use a modern case so it didn't look like a steaming pile of crap, because if you're flipping PCs, then one of, if not the most important part, is the aesthetics of the computer you're selling. Let's go over all the parts of this build, and if you're curious, then everything is linked below, as well as all the tools I use to flip computers. When it comes to PC flipping, you can either go the local route and try selling on Facebook Marketplace and similar sites, or you can go the online route and list on today's video sponsor, Jawa.gg. They're an online marketplace for buying and selling your old gaming gear, and they have been a great resource for me to be able to flip computers online. One thing that separates Jawa from other sites is the people who visit and browse Jawa are actively looking to either buy or sell computers, so they already have an audience who are interested in tech. If you're looking to flip PCs, but maybe your local market is trash, then give Jawa a shot. It is completely free to list an item, so it doesn't hurt to try it out. My favorite thing about selling on Jawa is how easy it is to communicate, not only with the Jawa support in case you have an issue, but it is so simple just to reach out to your buyers, keep them updated throughout the process. That alone should be a reason to try Jawa out. Check them out with the links below, and if you're a new customer on their site, use the discount code ElijahsLab10 to save $10 on your first order. Thank you, Jawa, and now let's get back to the video. I want to start this build with talking about the graphics card. I have the legendary GTX 1080 Ti. This GPU was released back on March 10th of 2017, and it was way ahead of its time. This will probably go down in history as the best GPU launch ever. I happen to have the Founders Edition with the original box, and I scored this a while back on Facebook Marketplace for only $100. If we scroll through eBay and check the recent sold listings of the 1080 Ti, you can see the average sold price is around $150 to $200. When I bought the GPU, I actually had planned to keep it for myself, but then I asked myself, what's the point? There wasn't any point, so that's why we're here. Before starting the build, I tested the GPU with an i5-12400F and 16GB of RAM. This was just to see how it was performing before actually getting it in a computer. What I found was that under load in games, the temperature was around the mid 70s to the high 70s, which honestly, I mean, it isn't bad. This little blower style design works all right, and surprisingly, it wasn't very loud. I decided the GPU was ready for use. The only thing I did, I used an electric air duster and gave it a good blow job. This removed all the loose dust in the fan, and we'll be back to install this in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's get into the build, starting with this sexy all-white motherboard. Well, not all white, but man, this thing looks good. Although, why the hell are the power connectors this brown color? Like, the black or gray would have looked 10 times better. Oh well, this Sabertooth Z170S will be perfect for this build, and this motherboard chipset supports Intel 6th and 7th generation processors. I'm using this Intel i7-6700K. Now, I will admit, I messed up. Originally, I had thought I had the Intel i7-7700K, which is why the computer would have been around 8 years old, but now with this processor, it is even older. The MSRP of this CPU, according to Google, was a crazy price of $339, but in 2025, you can buy it anywhere from $60 to $40, possibly cheaper locally as well. The crazy thing, this CPU is only a 4-core chip, but thank God it at least has hyper-threading and the clock speeds are solid. Now for memory or RAM, it's pretty simple. Virtually any DDR4 kit will work. I have this all-white kit from ADATA, and it will be a perfect match for this build, almost like a perfect match on Tinder. Too bad no boning will happen here though. Now for storage, this motherboard happens to have an open hole, one M.2 NVMe slot. I will be taking advantage of it. I'm a good old hole filler. The NVMe SSD I'm using is just a simple 1TB Gen 3, and if you're curious, the model is the Intel 670p. 512GB is the minimum amount of storage I would sell with the computer, so 1TB is a nice upgrade, plenty of room for Windows and a few games. And before we actually get the motherboard in the case, I want to tackle the cooling solution on the CPU. Keep in mind it has a TDP of 91 watts, and also keep in mind I got the CPU, motherboard, RAM all in a combo, which we will talk about later. The CPU came with this white AIO, although it didn't have any fans, so I installed these two from Thermalright. The AIO says GamerStorm on it, and after a quick search, it's from the brand Deepcool, who are actually banned in the US, which is good because man, this CPU reached 90 degrees pretty quickly. We will get a better idea once everything is in the case. Speaking of, here is the case. This sleek and modern looking all glass white some may say fish tank case, this will be the #1 reason the computer sells. It is a Sama SVO2, and this is one of the best value cases for the money. It's always around 60 bucks and comes with 3 addressable RGB infinity fans, and the 2 on the side are reverse flow. Plus, it has a fan hub and RGB controller in the back of the case. Definitely recommend this one. We have made it full circle. It is time for the GPU. Now to power all these parts, I'm using this Thermaltake Smart BM2 550 watt 80 plus bronze power supply. This was also bundled with the CPU and everything else. It is semi-modular with all black cables, but since the majority of our build is white, I of course had to add some cable extensions. I just went with a simple white kit from Formula Mod. I'm just finishing up the build, doing like all the cable management. As I've said, aesthetics are important when flipping PCs, and honestly, this AIO is everything but that. On top of it being kind of ugly, this is the RGB connector. As you can see, that is not ARGB, so I'm not going to be able to sync it up with all the other RGB products in this computer, so I'm going to swap it out with a different AIO. Here is the new AIO that I'm going to use. Not sure how it's going to look. The tubes are RGB. Let's hope it doesn't look like just like crap. The build is finally done, and it's already looking better with that new AIO in there, but now it's time to see if it actually works. Okay, at least everything is lighting up. Those RGB tubes are looking pretty crazy, and the SSD already has Windows pre-installed, so if it works, we should boot right into Windows. Yippee! Didn't go to Windows, but we at least got a post. Now time to play some games on it. I started the testing in Fortnite. If you're selling a PC, this is a game you should probably test, or at least have an idea of how it performs in case someone asks. I played at 1080p with DirectX 12 and I used all medium settings. We averaged 137 FPS with a 1% low of 56. It was running, but it would stutter when entering a new area or when things were loading in, probably because the CPU is only 4 cores, but it was still more than playable. Another game I have been testing has been Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Basically, any game that is popular is good to test, so you can provide the FPS numbers in the description. On this computer, I used 1080p with high texture resolution, high detail quality, and turned on AMD FSR 3 frame generation. We averaged 119 FPS, and our 1% low was 52. The final game I test on the majority of the computers I sell is Cyberpunk 2077. I like to load up the in-game benchmarking tool and just let it run. For this computer, I used 1080p with the high settings preset, and we ended up averaging 91 FPS with a 1% low of 50. And once I'm done testing is when I list the computer for sale. Now for the information you want to know. How much did this computer cost me, and will I make a profit? Well, to answer the first question, my total cost for this whole computer was only $282.50. How is it so cheap? Well, remember that combo I mentioned earlier? That combo only cost me $15.12, mainly because someone reached out and asked if I wanted their old parts, and I just had to pay shipping. Big shout out to you. Thank you, Joseph, if you're watching this. I really appreciate it. And now for the second question, will I make a profit? What if I told you it already sold? Yeah, it sold the same day I listed it for $550. I'm pretty happy with that, and after the fees and whatnot, the profit was around 200 bucks. That wraps up the video. If you enjoyed it, go and smash a like, subscribe if you want to, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.